What's up, y'all, and welcome to The Frequency. I'm your host, Dee Barnes. Today, we got a special show for you. I wanted to get into the subject of women in the industry, women that are working in the film industry in particular, and how they navigate their career pre-Me Too movement and post-Me Too movement. And today, I have a special guest. I'm so excited. I can hardly sleep, you guys. I'm telling you. I was so excited to have her on the show. She is an actress, a writer, an activist, and an advocate for things that are, all things good, and an advocate for democracy. If you've been following her on her Twitter feed, she is the one and only, the legendary Rae Dawn Chong in the building. What's up, sis? Thank you for electing me with this moment. I want to start off first by thanking you publicly. During my lowest time with the homeless situation, for those of you who know my story, and I was homeless, I was able to reach out to Rae, and she, took my call and mentored me about some things within the industry that are still resonating with me today. And I just want to thank you, sis, for, just taking the time, because it just seems like within this industry, you don't get that opportunity to talk to someone who would take you seriously and, really take the time. So thank you.
It's called love and it's called community. And I try to be a good communitarian.
Yeah,
I try, and I also don't judge people being perfectly flawed and someone who's made huge mistakes and done really weird things and basically flopped on my face a few times. I understand that everybody needs forgiveness, and not just forgiveness, but everybody needs a break.
Right.
You know, and the least you can do is be kind. I just wrote a tweet today about, I'm not enjoying listening to Trump lie like a stupid 5-year-old. Working. That doesn't take, I want this guy to go away, and I
Me
want him
too.
to I want him to get justice, but
Mhm.
I'm not enjoying, obviously, the old, creepy, he's so mentally disabled, and I'm not enjoying it. And it kind of takes the pleasure out of watching his downfall. And
Yeah.
I feel cheated. But having said that, though, I also think it's important in our community, especially in our particular community, women of color, certain age, we need to be really generous and have a lot of bandwidth for each other.
Right. And I noticed that that's not always the case.
We're wounded. It's
Huh?
a wounded. We're a wounded group. Look
Right.
at our history. Look where we come from. And then if you mix in my case, being racially mixed, and then you
Right.
mix in being attractive, like if you're beautiful like you, Dee, people enjoy. It's almost like a witch burning.
Oh, they enjoy when you're suffering. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, because for some reason there's this lie that if you have a lot, it's less for them.
Right.
And that's a lie, because there's an infinite amount. That's like discounting God. There's so much good in the world. There's so much wealth. It's like Oprah's not the only person who has billions. Everybody can have billions.
Right. Right. I mean, how do you feel about billionaires? I mean, I'm on the bandwagon of eat the rich. Well, how do you feel about billionaires?
Well, here's the thing. I have to say, if I won the lotto and all of a sudden given $360 million, I know personally for myself that it would throw my life out of balance. So chances are very good that
I would throw your life out of balance. I mean,
because all of a sudden I would be distracted. I would be distracted from my spiritual path.
Right.
I would find excuses to not focus on the things I need to focus on, which is like meditating, learning about the cosmos.
Right. Taking care of yourself.
Being a good human being. I would be distracted. I'd be shopping. I'd probably have too much crap in my life. I would probably use the money to not face all of my imperfections. I mean, money is distracting.
Right.
And the more money, you know that saying, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven. And it's not because money prevents you from being holy, but if you're not smart, money gets in the way of you feeling, of you being penetrable. A lot of people who have money, like I'll give you an example. I won't say names.
No,
but
don't say names.
there are certain people who have a lot of money, and I can see them suffering. They can buy sex, they can buy companionship,
Right.
but they don't have the confidence that they don't have
love.
Love them for them versus what they can get from them. You see?
Right.
It's like everybody strives for success, money, and fame. But at the end of the day, when you get to the pinnacle of that, and I can vouch, you all of a sudden find out you're alone. It's not as rich as you want it to be.
Right.
Certainly not as fulfilling. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have a lot of money of $300 million and not be a really good person. I really appreciate and respect Mackenzie Bezos, because she has taken her billions. I mean, how much money do you need? You don't need that much.
Exactly.
And she gives it away. She's giving, she can't give it away fast enough.
Right.
And I mean, the joy she must feel in being able to finance and give people who need it, who are just these tireless angels who are doing
Exactly. See, that's how I feel about it. If I was to have that type of money, I know for sure I would be trying to, end homelessness. I would be trying to, eradicate.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's where I struggle with all of that, Dee. I struggle with this realization that hardship creates wisdom. So do you want to deprive people of their experience? You see, we don't get to see
I want to deprive people of suffering. That's what I want.
Yeah, but that might be what they need. So you see, we've got to find a sweet spot of understanding.
Right.
I don't want to deprive anybody of being a bigot. I don't want to be a bigot against bigotry. I don't want to be a judging person of someone who's homeless, because what if you were able to see their soul evolution? What if they needed that experience?
Right.
And what would be the most loving thing? It's like having children. When people say, oh, I don't want that baby to die because they're a baby. But you don't know that maybe an early death might be exactly what their soul report card needs. We can't know. The human brain is so tiny.
Right.
We have such a small, limited, really, we do have it's almost like an operating system, the brain, the human brain. It's just it's unable to hold the knowledge that is out there and about each individual soul. So I always say to people in my prayers when I'm praying for the goodness, I always say, I don't want to stand in the way of their highest good. And I just pray that people find and are able to manifest and understand their highest good.
Right. Is it
that?
This is true. This is true.
So you going through your hardships, one of the things that having a lot of money does is it makes it, I've noticed, if you have a lot of it's distracting. And you can pay to have idiots around you telling you you're right.
Right.
And that you're this and you're the bomb and you're the shit and and the reality is you're not. The reality is you're not really doing what you should be doing, because I actually think that Earth is a schoolhouse for each of us, that we created Earth so that we could get smarter. And I think the reason why we're in a white supremacist country is it's part of what we called up. And if you think about it, I don't know if you've ever been in paradise, but you go to paradise and after about 3 weeks, maybe 3 months, you are so friggin' bored. You want to go where there's gravity, where there's a little bit of a struggle. You want to get to Latin. You want to
get your hands dirty.
You got to get dirty. You want some eggs, because what happens when you have that? You become smarter.
You're talking about reality, basically. You want to have that.
Everybody says, oh, in heaven, there's harps and it's angels and like the Muslim thing of 22 virgins. Dude, if you had to screw 22 women, you'd be exhausted. All these guys are virgins anyway. Exactly. It's like you can't even come up with, I'll tell you what I think. My dream is to have choice.
Right.
When I transition out of this causal plane and out of my carcass, I want to be able to look at, my guides and my angels and say, where is the most fun? Where can we the most, saucy, interesting,
that you can spend eternity.
Not eternity, because I don't think there's time. So eternity is like a non-sequitur. We don't even need to even know about eternity, because if there is no time, what is eternity?
Right.
What I want to do is where can it be of service? Where can I help the most?
Right.
What do I need to do? And I think there is a giant plan.
And see, that goes back to what you were saying, your foundation of love, which is one of the things that I personally love about you. Now, was this something that you learned as you were growing up? Because you grew up where? In Canada and America? Or
I had to learn it. I'm going to tell you something. In my family, I wasn't welcome. Tell
me.
Nope. I was born. My dad and my mom knew each other for a night. So my dad hit it and quit it. He was on the road. He was actually,
what?
Yep. He was engaged to somebody else. And my mom was this gorgeous little creature. She's a little underage girl. She was after my dad. My dad was very famous for being hot. And he hit
those of you that don't know your dad, of course, the comedian, actor, Tommy Chong. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So yeah, they hit it and quit it one night. She was underage. I think she was 16. And but my dad was 24. I mean,
okay.
Anyway, it's still what it is. But
yes,
she still was underage. And he hit it and quit it, and she was pregnant, and then her mom died when I was 3 months old. So she put me in an orphanage. And my dad's mother was trying to control him. And because he was wild and on the road and definitely flying the coop. And so she went secretly to Edmonton, Alberta, and adopted me and brought me to my father and his fiance, my mom, Maxine, who I call mom. No, because I didn't really meet my bio mom until later. But my grandmother manipulated my dad and his wife and said, you have to take this child. So I was not sought or, I was not wanted in that respect. So I grew up with a little patina and the smear of never being invited to anything. Like I was always the outsider, and it just so happened that I was pretty and charming and sort of a troublemaker. So I was able to make noise. But my first Earth moments were really really kind of complicated. So
Really? Hold on. We're going to get into that complication. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the frequency with my special guest, Rae. Rae Dawn Chong. We'll be back, y'all.
For decades, the tobacco industry has deliberately targeted Black communities and kids with marketing for menthol cigarettes. It's had a devastating impact on Black health. Tobacco use claims 45,000 Black lives every year. It's the #1 cause of preventable death. In the 1950s, less than 10% of Black smokers used menthol cigarettes. Today, it's 85%. Menthol cools and numbs the throat, making it easier for kids to start smoking. Menthol also increases addiction, making it harder for smokers to quit. Menthol cigarettes are a big reason why Black Americans have a harder time quitting smoking and die at higher rates from smoking-related diseases like cancer, heart disease, and stroke. It's time to stop Big Tobacco from profiting off Black lives. An FDA ban on menthol cigarettes will improve Black health, save lives, and protect future generations from addiction. Learn more at tobaccofreekids.org/ban menthol.
Back right here on the frequency with my guest, Rae Dawn Chong. We're getting into her growing up history.
Nobody else. I've never shared this publicly.
Oh my gosh. So we get an exclusive here. This is amazing though, because I did a lot of reading on your background, and I was trying to figure out, if you grew up in Canada, America, or both. And just hearing this story about, your grandmother, I'm in love with her. She's a G.
Here's the thing, but I'm the only one in the family of all the cousins. There's quite a few of us that calls her a gangster, because my grandmother was Irish, uneducated, but very powerful. She was disabled. She had tuberculosis at one point in her younger years. So she lost a lung, and then she didn't do any PT. And so then she was crooked. So I grew up with a grandmother who was bent over and basically disabled, and very Irish. Now, I actually have a little bit of a beef with her, because I feel like she should have asked my dad or asked Maxine, do you want this baby? But she didn't. My brother said, here, you have this. So she kind of thrust me into the situation, to be honest, which was kind of in some ways loveless. Maxine, my mom, who raised me, she was dealing with her own stress. Dad was running around being naughty. She had now this baby that wasn't hers, but that he created behind her back, right?
Right.
And then nobody in the family asked her opinion. They didn't say, Maxine, do you want this baby? So that kind of stuff. So grandma was a little bit of a gangster in that respect. And so the myth of my grandmother was, she was the saint, and she was the most loving, and I was the only one of the cousins that could terrorize her.
Oh, wow.
I think maybe. No, that's always the dynamic in the family. You always get the saint relative. And the truth is, if you examine everybody's role, and if you look closely to the people in the family, because we're all such a wounded group. My grandmother came from a mixed. She was part Anishinaabe, Native American, a Native Canadian, and her father was Croatian and Scotch Irish, and he was a disaster. He was the father of 12 kids. His wife died when my grandmother was a tiny little baby.
Wow.
My grandmother killed herself. And my grandfather was a pedophile. He was attacking the children, and particularly the neighbors' little girls.
Oh, my God.
So every family has all this saucy history. So my great-grandfather was a disaster. I'm so glad I never met him. And his name was Joseph Dillon. And then my grandmother, Jemima Dillon, she knocked herself out. She killed herself. She drank wine. So the shit was bad if you're going to drink lye.
Right. No doubt.
This is a family.
This is a wild history. So, I mean, you mentioned something that
That's just the Scotch Irish Chinese part. Because then my grandmother, she married a Chinaman in the 40s, which was so outrageous because Canada's racist.
wow.
Canada was super, super racist. And so my little
Super. So growing up as a mixed race child, it was just faced a lot of racism.
And my dad did. My dad was a little mixed, Asian. He was a little, mixed Chinese, Scotch, Croatian.
Right.
And kid. Yeah, my dad has that wound. So I came into a family really of wounded people who were dealing with race in Canada. Now Canada's softer. It's not like Arkansas or Alabama or Mississippi
or America.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It wasn't like lynching and stuff, but it was like emotional racism.
Right, emotional racism.
Being called chinky chink and all that stuff.
Oh my gosh.
That's not great.
Okay. So we take all of that background and I mean your family is talented. You have like talented.
Well, here's the thing about pressure. When you come into a place, when you come into a tribe where the wound and generational trauma, can you imagine, like, if you were to hold on a scale the African American experience, if you were to measure it by meters, we're off the meter in terms of abuse and trauma and the dysfunction. You cannot, as a human being, you cannot grow up or develop if you have that kind of trauma.
Right.
So we have generational stunted emotional, spiritual, almost intellectual growth just from the years of slavery and then post Jim Crow and then to this current era now, which is police brutality and white supremacy still functioning.
Right.
So there's so much that's why we need to get reparations, and that's why we need free medical, and that's 99% of our homeless problem are people that need to be in clinics and in-house care.
True.
Thank you, Ronald Reagan. So you can't, if you're a person of color and if you're a person who has a brain, you cannot not be an activist. You have to be an activist.
No doubt.
And white America, particularly white supremacists, which is white America, they don't want to face the fact that they stole this country from the First Nation.
Right.
They are thieves. And then they raped those people and put them in homes.
Right.
So on top of slavery, you've got the Indian decimation. And I mean, that kind of karma is just, it's fierce. And then the current body now, they don't want to face this. They don't want to face reparations, and they need to get Yeah, they need to get it together. There's a lot that this country has to face right now. But I want to know how. A lot of people of color, though, are resisting it because they don't want to disrupt. It's like Stockholm syndrome. When you've got the twins and you've got the people who are like what I call, I know for a fact they don't want to like crack into the trauma.
Right.
Think about it. They want to. They think
they want to pretend it's not even there.
They think it's the whiners and the they don't want to think about it. Our culture and community is very afraid of tapping into the trauma, and that's all we have. That's all we're reacting from is trauma.
Right. Exactly. No. This is good. I want to know how you transition that trauma into an acting career. Like when did you decide that was what you wanted to be, or was it something else you wanted to be when you were growing up?
I wanted to sing. I always thought I was a musician, and I didn't have the skills. I didn't know how to play an instrument, didn't know how to read music, and I didn't feel like my voice was strong enough to compete with a lot of the session singers, even though I was doing session work.
Right.
And then acting came to me because I was cute and I could do it because I'm charming. I never burned to do it. I didn't.
Right.
I never went, I'm an actor. I love theater. No,
did you feel like a Nepo baby? Because, I hear the conversation all the time about nepotism and Nepo baby. Do you feel like it's
I was a Nepo baby in terms of stage because I went on stage. I've been performing since I was 2.
Really?
my dad would put me on stage, and of course, I just love an audience. So,
Oh, wow. At 2?
I would dance on stage, and I would really do it. I was one of those babies that really knew how to. Yeah, I'm a performer, and if I got a laugh, hello.
Right.
I was definitely a little ham. And also, I think being the adopted weird child of my family, I think I knew if you want to be safe, you better be noisy.
You better be noisy.
Because no one's going to molest a little girl that's got pipes.
Oh my gosh.
I remember once waking up when I was 5 years old, because we always had like these musicians and people around our house, strange dudes. And so I remember at 5 waking up, and there was a man who had his hand coming into my cupboards. And I sat up at 5 years old. His name was Frog. Can you imagine? And I sat up and I looked at him, and I just opened my little mouth. And I remember screaming, and I'm pretty sure it was like a celestial owl. And everyone, everything. So that was the end of that. And I think as a little being, I kind of went, all right, I'm 2, people are weird and creepy, let's be normal.
Right. I mean, so at a young age.
So back to acting.
But at a young age, you learned how to protect yourself, to take care of yourself. So,
well, my parentals were busy. They were either running around trying to just survive their bullshit, or they were high. Or
right.
60s, they were just carrying on. And they my parents were so immature. I think that
parents.
Yeah, they weren't really ready for what.
Right.
So we were fairly.
It was a different time. It was a different time. I mean,
yeah, there were no car seats.
Yeah, and there were no car seats. There was no, laws against,
I used to walk us to school, and we were tiny little creatures. I used to walk to school. Right?
It's stuff that I wouldn't even allow my kids to do now. I know I've done when I was little. So how did you get to Hollywood from?
So let me tell you what happened. So then I was discovered. I sang at my 6th grade graduation. I got my first slate. But let me tell you something about being a child actor and about being an actor.
Please.
I was so fractured spiritually, emotionally, and intellectually. Like when I talk about knowing, I know about the fact that there are 5 parts of a human being: physical, maturity, physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual. So, and when you have extreme trauma, you usually you're physically grown up, maybe even intellectually, but emotionally and spiritually, there is going to be a hindering. So what you do, if you're smart, is you fake it. So as a young being growing up with all the stress and all this dysfunction, and abandonment is still abuse, even if you weren't physically abused.
Right.
And so I had more abandonment issues, and I had, there were probably some inappropriate things that we witnessed that we shouldn't have,
So I can.
That piles up. And so at about 28 years old, I broke. I intellectually broke, and I went into a study program, basically. I had fallen for a charlatan.
Yeah. So wait, so 28, you said you went to a study program, but were you acting?
No, I was acting and doing everything, but I wasn't happy. Nothing was penetrating. Couldn't feel love. Couldn't feel anything. I hated Hollywood. I knew it was just this wasp nest of just bad people. Now, if you're healthy, if you're emotionally healthy and you're centered, you would never choose Hollywood.
Wait a minute. Hold on. We're going to take a quick break because I need to dive into that deeply. What? Okay. We'll be back, you guys, on the frequency right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Back right here on The Frequency with your host, Dee Barnes, and my guest, Rae Dawn Chong. We were talking about Hollywood, and Rae, you said something right before the break that like blew my mind. You said, if you are emotionally...
No. If you're healthy. So I figured something out recently. This is a recent understanding of my situation.
Because I still want to talk about, you know, your beginnings in the industry, but you're talking about now.
We were talking just to have a through line to what we were talking about.
Right.
So as I've gotten healthier emotionally and spiritually as a woman, as an adult, I realized that had I had these tools and this foundational strength and this understanding and this emotional support, I would have never chosen Hollywood.
Really?
Because it's a place that's filled with scallywags and pirates and, you know, racism and sexism and ageism. And most of the people, if they say, oh, yeah, we're really interested in this, we really want to do it, they don't want to do it. They're not interested in it. They're just lying. People will just look at you and lie. You know, these are people who, why would they do this? It's almost like sport sometimes in Hollywood.
Right.
So even at my peak when I was getting a lot of stuff, as soon as I was working a ton, I heard people whispering, oh, we don't want to pay her because we're giving her a break. So when I was working a lot, I wasn't getting paid what I was worth because it was
right. Yeah.
And then when you start to go on what I consider and there's enough bad people in this industry that will say bad things about you and enough people who will believe it because it's an industry based on fear. Most people are desperate to hold their jobs. This is why all these diversity programs and the people that work in diversity in Hollywood, it's a joke because the people who are making the decisions and green lighting everything are frat boys. They're white men who want to, you know, have sex with younger girls.
Yep.
And it's
or younger boys for that matter.
Cisgendered. It's like boring frat boy. I mean, the reality is we're in an industry that only cares about the white man in a cowboy hat and cowboy boots.
No doubt. Well, they're trying to make, you know,
by the way,
take it back to that.
And by the way, then the Black experience is always marginalized to the one little tiny micro voice, which is Medea.
Right.
Why is Medea so successful? Because do we look good? Do we come across as a multi-charismatic, intellectually interesting, you know, even sexuality? Like, think about this.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, to show a woman of age being interesting, being sexual, you know, it's like unheard of. I mean, they might let Helen Mirren get laid at 70.
Right. Or Diane Keaton.
Diane Keaton can let
she keeps that turtleneck on.
Like either they won't show a woman of color, and then even then, because we're such an emotionally traumatized group,
right?
That when women of color talk about their sexuality, you know, it's usually rapey.
It's rapey. Or colorism.
It's not all rapey. Like, there's some of us who are able to get through the gauntlet and not be raped. Like, we just like to fuck. So,
right.
But then you're like slut of, you know, you're sluts.
You're slut shamed if you're not. Yeah.
Well, in the community, you know, part of the reason why there's so much churchiness and good girlism, it's bullshit. It's
right.
Because it takes away the moisture and the sexuality and
the naturalness of it. It takes away all of that. So I mean,
it's an overreaction to rape culture and to the slave master.
Wait, say it again.
It's an overreaction to the slave culture. It's this, you know, all of a sudden you have to be really, really good and really, really churchy. It's an overreaction to all the, you know, the hundreds of years of trauma. We've been raped and terrorized for hundreds of years. So what do? We go, oh, the pendulum swings to the other side. So then if you're like me, I'm a literal walking, I'm offensive just by virtue of who I am. Because
what do you mean by that?
My dad's white. So I have this, well, he's actually mixed, but I have this, I'm not like Viola Davis dark. Yeah, and I love them. Right. But there's racism within our industry. There's racism.
Colorism, right?
Because I represent that some white person, you know, and so it's just so annoying. And then the mix.
Do you feel like that affected the roles that you got? Because I think about like your earliest movies.
I had to fight for everything. I had to fight for everything coming and going.
Really?
get into projects that were not written specifically for a person of color.
I know that, like a Commando, for example.
Well, I fight for everything because I just wanted to be taken seriously as a human being and I wanted to show depth. I wanted to show all that. I didn't want to do what they call blacking. I didn't want to do, I couldn't. There are better people who did it, Sam Jackson, whatever. But I also wanted blacking. So where you're not necessarily playing a character, you're just playing a cultural, it's in some ways like you have to look at the industry. I mean, I think Spike Lee is bitter about this, but they'll give certain filmmakers who happen to be Black a spot.
Right.
Give them a section.
But
in terms of like, the integration, the bridging, we just see you as a good filmmaker. That's just gone. Because
that's gone.
Facts. Ryan Coogler, a genius.
He is.
Genius times 5 billion. Had his film, the second film of Black Panther,
right?
So good.
It was amazing. Angela Bassett should have got that Oscar.
Well, she's getting one this year, so let's not be too.
Yeah, but that's I'm a rare Oscar.
Thing that bothers me about the whole thing. He didn't get
Ryan.
He's considered a Black director. He's not really considered a director. He's a genius. If you ask me, that script was so fucking smart. I watched, what's his name? James Cameron, and that script sucked. And that as well. But Ryan Coogler has this extraordinary script.
I know somebody that,
and it was so smart, and it was so racial, and it was so delicious, and crickets. Well,
they did that also with Gina. With the Woman King.
I didn't see that movie, and I still should see it because I know it's really good. And
I saw The Woman King. I loved it, and I couldn't believe that also crickets.
So the industry is like, and so to me, it's like I look at Taylor Sheridan. He is shitting all over his studio. He can't shovel more truckfuls of manure on top of those executives.
Oh my God!
Writing the check.
They did it.
Writing the check, and
he's a white man.
I'm jealous because he can sit back and be bloated and rich and successful because he knows I'm king.
Right, and he can do the bare minimum.
Someone like, like you said, the late Gina. I'm just saying somebody like that or Ryan Coogler, every time they go out, and Viola Davis has talked about this, they've got to struggle again. Even Taika Waititi, they've got to go out there and do the song and dance.
All right, we gotta have to stop on that one. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be back right here on the Frequency on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
Back right here on the Frequency with my guest, Rae Dawn Chong. When you were coming up in Hollywood doing movies, because I have to talk about, of course, Beach Street, because it's the 50th anniversary of hip hop. I've got to squeeze that in there. I have to know about how, do you even like hip hop? I mean, was that just something that you just happened to?
Well, I was hired as an actor because I knew the the director of Beat Street originally was Andrew Davis.
Andrew Davis before Stan.
Before Stan. And Andrew Davis, I did my very, 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 very first feature film with him. It was called Stony Island.
Stony Island. Oh, he did
a Chicago piece about South Side of Chicago, and he was so much. He's a joy. He's a great guy. He then went on to do The Fugitive and a bunch of big films. Andrew was hired me to star in Beat Street. And the truth is, Gina Belafonte should have had the part. But Harry was pressured by David Picker and the studio to hire somebody else. And I was working a ton. I was back to back to back to back. And Andrew called me and said, Rae Dawn, would you do a favor and come join me on this movie? And I read the script. I thought it was okay. And I wasn't really into hip hop, but it wasn't because I just didn't know about it. I was working and being a young mother. And so I went and I was working on a set doing night shooting, and I got picked up by a car and taken to the airport. And I arrived in New York City. And the first thing they tell me is that I have a wardrobe fitting with Harry Belafonte. With Harry Belafonte. And I said, I need to sleep. I said, I have not, because I can't sleep on a plane. And I said, I need to sleep. I haven't slept yet. And I've been working 12 hours, then flying 7 hours. I mean, I was mental.
Right.
And they said, Mr. Belafonte, when Mr. Belafonte wants you to do something,
you do it. You do it. That's Harry. You did the late great. So you did it. You didn't want to.
I was so tired, and I got into his apartment, and I hated him the second I saw him.
Wow.
Well, because he wasn't the great Harry Belafonte. And, the man at midnight coming in, I want to go home. I knew who he was, but the fact that they didn't let me go and just at least have 5 hours. The fact that they were like, oh yeah, she's been hustling. Yeah, sure. Let her go rest and we'll do it after. None of that was there. I just thought, oh, it's war.
Wow.
So that's how our relationship started. And he should have hired his daughter. He should have put her in that part. I'm just going to go on record.
I'm just glad that you were in it. So
no, but let me tell you something. So I was immediately terrorized by the production. And then 6 days into the piece, Andrew was fired. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I got to go. And so if you get hired by a director, but the director gets fired, you're still stuck on the thing that they have footage of you. It was like the biggest disaster. But anyway, I ended up just grinning and bearing it. And I really liked working with Stan. Stan was sweet. Thank God they hired him. And I thought it was interesting. I didn't think it was as good as Wild Style. I really liked the movie. But I thought it was okay. It was fun.
I thought Wild Style was phenomenal, and I love
a really good movie.
Yeah, it is.
It was
different. Your Wild Style was almost borderline documentary. You know what I mean? Because it was like they just were freestyling and just and
it was so real. I mean, that one shot with the gun. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And B Street was more like the Disney version of it, the Disney version. But I'm grateful that you were in it. It was, a big
I met a lot of people. I met Russell Simmons and I met a lot of people that I still am friends with that I know,
I just had one of the Us girls from the movie, Debbie D, MC Debbie D. She was just on and we talked about it. Hip hop and, that's my whole background. And
then Breaking came out right after ours.
Right. Breaking was more of the Los Angeles one.
I like being a part of history. I think that's cool.
And you definitely were. Any other movies in particular that you did you look back on now and you go, okay, I'm glad I was in that? Or do you have movies that you regret? Like, I know, I
don't regret anything because
Soul Man.
I love that movie and I don't regret it because it's
really
good. I think it's beautiful.
They can never make Soul Man now.
I know, but you see it, but the people who criticize it never saw it. It's a beautiful movie. And
I saw it in the movie theater, actually.
Yeah, it's a beautiful love story. And he gets in trouble and he comes to Jesus and he realizes what he's done is wrong.
Right. And that was one of the things that I liked about the movie, that they did show, consequences for his actions. He regretted it.
He doesn't Nobody said it was okay. Nobody walked around and said, "Oh, fine."
Yeah,
I mean, there's films that people accept now that are kind of questionable. But but I I mean, again, we're talking about wounded people, and blackfacing isn't ever acceptable because it's painful. We have a painful history.
Yeah, we do, and that goes right back to what you were saying.
I mean, come on, Dances with Wolves is racist.
No doubt. You back on camp, huh? You just not like.
No, because I just think there's so much. Everybody gets a pass because they're successful, right? Well, it doesn't mean that
not just successful, rich, white. You know what I mean? Because black people on that level can get a pass.
I've gotten the best jobs from tall, beautiful, waspy white executives. They have nothing to lose. They can risk and give me a shot.
Right.
I've never been hired by a black executive woman.
Really?
Ever.
And do you think that has to do with colorism?
Yep. There's a lot of colorism.
I did not know you were never hired by
oh yeah. And if you get hired, if there is a project that is non-specific, the role, they'll go with somebody who's literally 17 tones darker because of the fact that they want to make sure they hit it.
Right. They want to make sure.
Instead of like, is she good for the character? Does she have the right, emotional flavor? Is the depth of her, yeah.
Wow. What other things have you experienced in the industry like that?
No, I'm just saying that I'm not bitter about it. I just, it is what.
No, I'm like, how did you navigate, for example, like I was talking earlier about the Me Too movement and being,
Here's what I think. Here's what I think about the Me Too movement, which is interesting, I think. It's almost like 100 years too late. I mean, obviously, if you look at Marilyn Monroe, she was consistently raped, left, right, and center by all those creepy guys. Right. If you hear the stories of Judy Garland, she was consistently, as a child, and her mother was pimping her. So there's like stuff like that where I go, hello, you're like 150 years too late. The beginning of Hollywood was about, we're talking about male patriarchal white supremacy. Hello, that's it. And this was Jews and Italians, but they were racist against themselves. So the Me Too thing is important, but it also can be abused. Does it? I think it's important that someone like Harvey, and there's somebody now who's working, who is extremely successful, and he's basically a slaver. But Hollywood embraces him because he's making hand over fist money for them. They don't want to look at that side of him because they don't care. It is like society doesn't care about the female. They don't. I mean, even to this globally, cultures do not care about their little girls.
Hold on.
That's why women and children who are indigenous go missing, who are black go missing, and they're not top of the story. We hear ad nauseum about Gabby Petito because she's a little white blonde thing who got terrorized by her boyfriend and was murdered. But we will not get the same coverage for the, hundreds of thousands of black and brown women, children who are missing and murdered. And that just goes to show you that the planet is ill and that the populace of humanity is suffering. I think Bhutan is probably the only country that cares about every single one of its citizens, and they're probably going to get destroyed as well. But
wow, what do you think we can do to change this? I mean, it hasn't changed in, like you said, years. What
hundreds of years, Dee Barnes? There's been white supremacy and patriarchy for at least 9,000 years. The Catholic Church didn't help,
Right. So, okay. And I want to reiterate, too, with the Me Too movement, that it started off for women of color.
I'm going to tell you something. With Jesus, let's go to Jesus.
Oh, we're going to take it back. We're going to take it way back. Okay.
I mean, Mary Magdalene was from a wealthy family. She was a goddess. She studied probably so many amazing things. She was like an intellectual. She was such a good being.
And they made her into
number one apostle. She was his right-hand person. Yep. He loved her more than anybody. He trusted her more than anybody. And what is history? They call her a hooker.
They call her a hooker.
They call her a slut. And that, to me, sums it up. That is the earth problem. So Me Too, The fact that the agencies, the big top agencies, pimped actresses to Harvey Weinstein. That is, to me, it sums up how unimportant we are.
It definitely does. I mean, they still, we looking at Roman Polanski. That whole thing makes my stomach fucking turn. Please do not tell me you like him, because I cannot stand.
Talk about Roman Polanski. He is also, there's so much. Look, Jeffrey Epstein. He was pimping children. Apparently Jeffrey Epstein's dead. Who knows? But why? Look at the modeling business. Gerard Marie. They're screwing children constantly. There is a huge problem with global child sex trafficking. It's not like, and so then everyone says, Roman Polanski, yes, he's part of it, but he's a tiny little, I'm just saying, don't make a bigger thing out of him just because he's famous. He is exactly what is acceptable in France.
Right.
Marie, the head guy of Elite Modeling Agency, has been allegedly having sex with children since the beginning.
Oh my God.
And the one case against him was they had to apologize to him. He's still in business. That's the whole. That's the core of the modeling business.
Right.
15-year-old girls being fed to these.
I mean, what advice do we have for these young women? Like,
I'm going to tell you what I would say to people.
Please.
Teach your daughters martial arts. Go to Aikido.
Yep.
Give them their worth and value.
Yes.
And prepare them. And give them drug education, sex education. Start educating your babies when they're young.
Exactly.
It's a war zone out there.
It really is.
Know their value. They can say no, and if they don't get no, learn how to disable somebody.
You're not playing. You're not playing. You're absolutely right, because my two daughters. See, I did exactly that. I tried to prepare them as best I could for, the challenges.
If your little girl isn't in a martial arts class, and I prefer Aikido,
right?
You're not teaching your little 5, 6, 7-year-old martial arts, then you're not doing your job. Every child should be in martial arts.
Just a boy,
so they know how to stay well, and then they learn they know how to change what's coming their way.
Right.
Teaching people to freeze. Teaching little girls to please,
right?
Just feeding them into the maw of the predator.
We'll be back right here on The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
Big Tobacco targets Black communities with marketing for menthol cigarettes. In the 1950s, less than 10% used menthol cigarettes. Today, it's 85%. FDA, ban menthol cigarettes, save lives.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Back right here in The Frequency with my guest Rae Dawn Chong, and we're talking about women women that just no one cares about. Women of color, Black women, little girls, when they go missing, Indigenous girls. Like, that whole subject, Rae, really keeps me up at night. Like, I don't know what we can do in order to, bring that attention to us. Like, how do we protect our little girls, or how do we prepare them for, what they have to face?
So as a mother, as a caregiver, as a witness, you need to look into yourself and see where you give up your power in every single way. Get strong, get real, get honest about that. That's the first thing. Do you come from an era that's about pleasing the other? Do you sacrifice your daughters because you want a man to pay your bills? These are really core truths and core shocking things you need to face. That's the first thing. Second thing is arm them with skills. Teach them martial arts. I do Aikido. I believe in it. I think it's an amazing martial art. It's beautiful. It teaches them how to protect themselves, defend themselves. They'll never get into trouble.
Right.
I say educate, 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 educate. Did I say educate?
Did you say educate? Yes.
Meditate yourself. Most mothers need work. Most mothers need therapy. Most mothers need to face their own wounds.
True.
If you can be brave, and if you can inquire, and if you can uncover your wounds, and you're always a work in progress. Like people get worried and say, you're never going to get it done, but there's no rush. You are a star. You are made from the same material that's in the nebula, that's in the galaxies. So we really are atomic beings. We're atomic particles. So this carcass that we're working with now for the next 80 years, if we're lucky, it's going to fade into the ether. But your soul, the thing that animates you, that's going to go on forever. So you're going to get a chance to do it right. And everything you experience is a reflection of who you are. So if you're experiencing violence, there's a part of you that is violent. If you're experiencing dishonesty, there's a part of you that's dishonest. When we can get to the point where we can look, instead of looking out and blaming, when we can look inside and see where we're a part of it, where we vibrate to the same frequency, that's a powerful knowing.
There it is. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, you've given me so much to think about. And I got to leave it right there when you were talking about the frequency. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I named the show The Frequency. I wanted to take the low vibrational conversations that are out there and raise the vibration, you know what I mean? And wow, you've given me so much to think about. And I hope you've given the audience, even more to think about, because here we are living in this world where Roe versus Wade is they overturned it. You know what I mean? So now
for now, but not forever. It's going to be made into law. No, we're going to have it. We're going to have it made into law. Also, the equality is
not if Trump gets back in there.
He's not going to get back in. He's got too many. He's going to die fighting for his life, because already there is an avalanche of indictments.
Yes,
he'll be sentenced to thousands of years in prison, but he will not even probably spend a minute in prison, because his little being, his little body, which is not little, is going to probably expire.
Right. But we still have people like him, Trump-like people.
Trump adjacent. Yeah.
Trump adjacent.
But it's also something we needed these organisms to come out to the forefront. We needed to that there was pus festering underneath the interstitial muscle of humanity.
This goes back to what you were saying originally. We needed this so that we could eradicate it.
How do I know it's true? It's here.
It's here. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. You are amazing. Thank you. All right. Thank you, y'all. Agree with y'all on the Black Dawn Network.